Hi guys, my name is Seun Salami. Thank you very much for joining me once again on another episode of Love Code on YouTube. I'm so excited that you keep watching all my videos every week. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing them. If this is the first time, maybe you just stumbled on one of my videos today, thank you very much. You're welcome here. You can go ahead and subscribe to the channel just so that you know every time I have a new video on the channel. Thank you guys. So we're talking about things to talk about after marriage. So here we go. First things first, talk about family planning. Talk about family planning, okay? So this is what you're getting into. You're trying to raise a family, okay? Except if you guys have agreed that you don't want kids, all right? But you know, in the biblical worldview of marriage, one of the reasons why God brought a man and woman together is to be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth. So that's what it's all about, okay? So we're not here to prescribe how many children you can have or should not have, but you know, that's what we Christians believe, that one of the main reasons for God instituting marriage is for procreation. So it's very important to understand that it's not just for us to be selfish about, you know, not wanting children or raising, you know, because raising children really is a calling from God. It's not just for our own personal, you know, satisfaction or whatever it is, or lack of it, you know, if you like. But it's a calling because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and someone raised us, a couple, you know, maybe a single mom, you know, whatever scenario, we were raised by somebody, so we should also be able to do the same. Okay, so you want to talk about family planning, and why are we talking about family planning? There's this idea of the second baby shock. Which I like to talk about. And the second baby shock is what happens to a lot of young couples, which is that you get married, of course, you know, they're going all out, so the first baby comes, which is okay, you know, but after that first baby, most couples don't start to put things in place, don't start to talk about, okay, how do we want to space out our children? So they just keep going as though, you know, everything is normal. And before you know what's happening, boom, the second baby has you know, the second baby has come on the scene. So that's the second baby shock. So to avoid that, you want to talk about from the get-go, okay, how do we want to space out our children? So after you have your first baby, sit down with your family physician and talk about family planning. Okay, what are the best options for you guys? What works for you? What does not work? That's not to say that there are not couples who want to have their babies, you know, like back to back. I mean, we wanted twins, so even having our babies, you know, spaced out by 2 years was kind of like, you know, we just wanted to do two at first, you know, but God in his mercy gave us what he thought was best for us, so which we appreciate him for. So that's the way you should approach this. You know, talk about it, look at your you know, your wife's situation, what's okay for her, and if it's you know, whatever it, I don't want to go into too much details, you know what I'm talking about. So the doctors will do more about that. So talk about family planning basically. So that's one of the first major things that you guys want to talk about after you get married, even before the first baby comes, okay? Number two, you want to talk about children education fund. You want to start talk about children education fund. This is different from family finances. That's going to come up in a moment. But this is you planning ahead for the education of your children. You want to start talking about, you know, what kind of schools do we want our kids to go? How do we hope to afford that? Now we know that there's the aspect of God performing a miracle, okay, but in the natural we also need to plan, okay, and let God interrupt our plans pleasantly, but we still need to plan. You know, believing in God doesn't negate planning. It doesn't mean that you don't plan. It means that you submit your plans to God and let him, you know, do something good with it, as it were. So, but you still need to plan. So think about that and start to talk about how much of our income do we want to put aside for our children's education in the future, you know, and start to do that. If you are getting, you know, childcare benefits, don't blow everything. You know, don't start buying things. That's not what those funds are for. They are actually for the children. So you want to maybe open an account for them, right, and start to put that money there, you know, and put it aside, you know, just for them, for their education, for it to build up in the future. You know, there's so much statistics out there about, you know, how much it takes for a child to grow and go to school here in North America. You go online and find all of those. I don't want to bore you with all those details. I have a few of them, you know, that I've looked at myself and we've worked with in my own family, and we are putting aside money for our children's education. It takes quite a bit in this part of the world for children to actually go to school and finish up. So you don't want them to start, you know, when that time comes and it's almost impossible for you to afford it. So you want to start to talk about that from the get-go. Talk about your children's education fund. Now the third one then is the finances of the family. You want to sit down and talk about family finances. We're talking about the things to talk about after marriage. Okay, so talk about family finances. How do we want to do this? Do we want a joint account, for instance? Are we going to have separate accounts? How would that work? What does that look like? Do we want to have 2 separate accounts and 1 joint account? Where each person is contributing a certain percentage. Or do we just want our money to come into the same account? There are pros and cons to all of these different things, depending on your level of trust. And like we talked about last week, this is actually one of the signs of health in marriage. Okay, this is one of the many signs of health in marriage. If you guys can be open and honest about money without quarreling or without any bitter feelings, it's a good sign. So the earlier you start to talk about it, the better. So you want to just express that, how do we want to go about our family budgeting and finances? If one person is better at saving, that person should be in charge of saving the money for the family. If one person is better at bargaining, then let that person be the one who bargains on behalf of the family, okay, to purchase things. So those kind of things. But these things have to be talked about. They cannot just be imagined or wished, where people just expect that things will work and they are not talking about it. Nobody's saying anything, all right? So you want to talk about that. Now, number 4 here is a controversial one, and this is life insurance. And I'm talking here specifically to people who are in North America. Okay, I know people who are in other parts of the world, this might not be a popular idea because it's not as well organized as it is in this part of the world. But this is something you want to consider. Now, why am I saying this? Now, I know that some people don't like the idea. They feel like the idea of life insurance means I'm wishing death on myself. Right? That's an African thing. It's a cultural thing. It's not a scriptural thing. No. You think about it very well. This idea that, if I go and do life insurance, doesn't it mean I'm planning to die? It's a concept that we grew up with, in our culture. It's not a biblical concept. Now, the biblical concept, and I just don't want to go into it, is that story of the widow of the sons of the prophet that died, right, and left a lot of debt for his wife. You don't want to do that. That's not something that is good for the reputation of God. That you die and then your wife starts running around, or your children, and everything changes for them. They can't even afford to bury you properly because you want to go and find out what it takes to bury somebody in this part of the world. It's not a joke. It's not like, the way where back in Africa where you can just dig up something at the back of your house and bury somebody there. You cannot do that here, right? So you have to, things have to be done in a certain way. And those things cost money. It costs money. Go and find out how much those things cost. It's not a joke. So most times it is companies that are able to, insurance companies that pay for those things, right? But if you don't have that, in plan, it's going to be really, really tough, okay? So you want to just consider it, look into it, right? And look at the reputable, companies, right? And this is something that you want to just consider, okay? I'm not saying overnight you will get comfortable with the idea, but for the sake of your family, if you have a family, for the sake of your wife and your children, it's something you want to consider. And it's both ways, okay? It's both ways. So whether husband or wife, and I mean, if you are thinking in your mind, doesn't it mean that my partner now will want to kill me if I have? Again, these are all African ideas. They are not. There's nothing. It's just this what we've grown up with. We've seen a lot of movies, Nollywood movies, Ghanaian movies that have shown us that this person killed their husband because of this, or even here too, right? Some of those movies have shown us that, right? I mean, those are things that if you are thinking that way, it means that there's still a lot of work that you need to do on your marriage in terms of trust. So it will help you to start to look into certain things that may be deeper issues. That is not just about the insurance, but the fact that there's still issues of trust. There's still issues of commitment in your marriage. So that's very, very important. So let's move this along here, just because of time. You want to also talk about family vacations, for instance. You want to start to plan that into what you want to do as a family, okay? To say every year, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take out, if you don't plan it, it won't happen. Especially where finances are concerned, where that, okay, if we're going in August, we want to go to such and such a place as a family, and just to get away and bond together as a family, you need to plan to be able to afford that. So maybe you want to start putting money aside, from your pay every month to a separate account, as this is going to be what you're going to use for vacation. But if you don't talk about it, it won't get done. Now, I understand that some people see this the issue of vacation as a luxury, but it's really not a luxury. It is something that you need to rejuvenate, to revitalize yourself, right? To be ready to go again, every year. So it's very, very important. If you can afford to do it, you should start to talk about it and think in that direction. Okay. And the next one is you want to talk about dates. You want to talk about dates with your spouse, and this is just you and your partner now. Okay. This is after you are married. Okay, I'm not talking about before you get married. Before you get married, it's easy to go on dates because that's all you want to do, right? But after you get married, that's the last thing you want to do, because there are so many other things that are calling for your attention, especially when kids get involved. When you have jobs to focus on and all of those different things. You have to plan it into what you do as a couple. You have to start to plan your dates, and talk about how often do we want to get alone together, where do we want to go, how do we want to do that, do we want to revisit, having a vacation that is just for the both of you, maybe a weekend getaway from time to time, and these things are important to just keep life in your marriage, to keep the blood pumping, as it were, right? Just to keep your marriage alive and fresh, and keep things, these are the things that people don't do, that lead to accumulation of stress, and then one day they just blow up, and people say, but that couple looked so happy together, what happened to them? It's stress. Things were piling up. They were not taking the time to decompress and to get away from all of this everyday things, and just focus on their partner. And bitterness grew, things just mounted up, and then one day everything just exploded, or an opportunity as it were showed up somewhere, and they just went astray. So this is something that is very, very important, and you want to take some time with that. Okay, so just for today, the final one I'm going to talk about is extended families. You want to talk about your in-laws. You want to talk about your in-laws. There's so much here. In fact, we could do an entire video just talking about in-laws. This is a very important subject. Is anybody going to be allowed to live with you? For how long? Are you comfortable with that? What are the things that how are we going to support our families? How are we going to? This is one major area that causes disagreements and grievances with couples, where when it comes to supporting each other's families. The wife is taking money secretly to give to her own family. The husband is taking money secretly to give to his own siblings, and it's unnecessary. If we will only sit down and talk, if we only talk about this thing with our partners and plan it into our lives, plan it into our budget, let's know how much we will be giving to each family, as it were. And again, I'm saying this because most people who are from Africa, this is the way we are brought up, is to care for our parents, and that's a good thing, right? But it must not be something that now brings disunity and discord into your own family. So it's something you want to talk about with your partner. So this is one other vital thing that you must talk about after marriage. Okay, so thank you very much for watching the video. I'm going to stop here today just because of time. So thank you for watching this video. If you like the video, please share it with your friends, and make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications so that you know when I have a new video out. I usually have new videos out at 6 p.m. Atlantic Daylight Time. Every Sunday I have a new video out. Until I see you again next week, thank you very much for watching the video. God bless you.